to the Pacific Championship Series, and it's the match, it's the playoffs. J-Team versus Machi Esports. And now the series is tied 1-1 in this best-of-5 series, and we're heading straight to the draft.
Straight into draft, and no unfamiliar faces quite yet. Looking like an exact rundown of the previous game when it comes to these bans at least. Pocket carries formation in the mid lane being banned out, compared with the roaming-centric macro kind of champs that Nesty has just been trending towards all split long.
Exactly, the trend is just having to ban as much as mid laners so far in the first rotation, quite similar to game number 2. And, Rest playing it safe here as getting that Renekton once again, and a copy paste of the draft from game number 2. This is deja vu.
And now I do wonder, do we see a race for the 0% win rate Orianna, or will we see both of these teams kind of trend away from it? Rest getting his hands on the Renekton, of course, that melee lane bully, knowing for a fact that PK, not much of a Quinn or Kalista player, can't really punish you all that much. And Machi, their champion pools are so suspect that I think if they are put in a position they're not comfortable with, and if J-Team continue to use this pressure, use this early skirmish kind of mentality, it will be difficult for Machi to claw their way back in.
Exactly. This is, playing to their element. And, Riz, you mentioned earlier in game number 1 whether or not they're going to be taking the Ezreal right off the bat just to see whether they can squish Bruce's champion pool a little bit more. It looks like that's the case. Ezreal being locked in for Lil V.
Yeah, PK's pool suspect, because what can he answer Renekton with? Yeah, tank cool, but last time got solo killed at level 2 trying to limit test. Nesty now locking in that Ezreal for Lil V does mean we see Bruce's effective champion pool pretty much halved between the Aphelios and Ezreal, and, well, gonna go to the Kalista this time, but that now puts burden of execution on Machi to be proactive in the early game, something they are not too familiar with actually having done.
It seems that J-Team is a better expert when it comes to early game aggression, I suppose, and I guess the different factors now come into play, whether the 2 first picks for both teams are the same, the AD carry is different, and now Machi removing Sylas after Nesty's great performance on the champion in game number 2.
Great is subjective, let's say that. Invisible for the first 15 minutes, but then yeah, he did show up to hyper carry, and it is of course just a good matchup anytime the enemy team takes on. What I am fairly eager to see from here on out though is what support we pair with the Kalista. Do you take the Braum for additional lane pressure, but kind of an invisible lane phase against the Ezreal? Or do we see Leona making an appearance again, alongside a potential Thresh, finally, for the first time this series?
It could be a possibility, considering the fact that Type A J-Team has decided to remove the Leona, so it might be, just as you mentioned, the typical Thresh, Nautilus, and the bottom side of the map for Woody and Koala to pair that up with their carries, and Lucian again being another consistent ban since game number 2. But yeah, looks like that's another limit towards the heavy engage portion of things, but Rakan is open for the taking if they decide to pick that up.
I think here you just go for Nautilus or Braum and then trade that back for J-Team's pick of a counter into that. If you lock Nautilus blind here, it gets Braumed or Tahm Kenched in response. You could also run Karma into it if you are J-Team, but either way, there are a lot of options you can take into this support that Koala has just locked in for himself.
And with the support being revealed already towards Machi, having to save that last pick for mission to have a more comfortable spot to see what Nesty decides to pick up in the mid lane. Again, Galio TF already out of the question. Sylas as well from the previous game, and there you have it. Just as you mentioned, Braum being taken as a counter.
Yeah, Braum wins lane phase into pretty much every melee, needs to actually kind of cheese prio level 1. I think the difference between Braum and Nautilus isn't quite enough to outweigh the difference between Ezreal and Kalista, unless the Ezreal juggles his passive stacks perfectly. Here's a roaming mid that we saw banned out in game 2 that actually has made her way through pick and ban this time around.
And looks like it's going to be a little bit of an interesting duel. Mission on the Akali this time around, and as well as Nesty on the Kiana. And we rarely see Mission in this sort of champion, and now we finally see him on something that's a little bit on the flashier side of things.
Yeah, Akali definitely pretty volatile in that regard. Does kind of remain invisible for lane phase, but then scales up dramatically come the later stages of the game. Pretty intriguing to see how this one plays out. Do we see Mission actually roam a little bit and kind of deny some of these Hana invades? Or will we see this Lilia take over the early game? I'm looking towards Machi's comp and we're seeing Kalista needing to do a lot early, the Graves needing to scale up pretty dramatically as well, while J-Team, it's all about that top side yet again. Coordinate 3-man dives onto PK, onto Mission, and get Lilia rolling.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things where J-Team is in their element when it comes to composition-wise, and for Machi, still practically the same, almost, except for the next 3 champions right off from the mid lane down at bot. But then Mission, again, we've never seen him, I believe, in spring, never picked Akali, even during playoffs. So this is a interesting turn of events where once he tries to be a little bit more on the, I suppose, on this side of things, doesn't pan out too well, as this is quite outside of his comfort zone, but excited to see how this pans out.
Definitely could be super competitive either way, depending on how the early game goes. Do we see Lilia take over the top side and subsequently the game by unlocking Kiana and Renekton, or do we see Kalista Nautilus as early game duo in the bottom lane just smash through the defensive utility of J-Team's weak side?
Well, we'll have to see how that's going to all pan out, as this is, again, game number 3 between Taipei J-Team versus Machi Esports.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
Game number 3, Machi looking really clean when it comes to game number 1. J-Team is able to get back into their footing in game number 2. Now it's a 1-1 situation, again, for those of you who just joined us. This is not an elimination series. Whoever loses this will drop down into the bracket, fight Nova Esports, just waiting. And whoever wins this we'll have to fight whoever wins the AHQ and PSG talent match. That's going to be happening tomorrow.
Whoever wins this will be one best of 5 away from Worlds qualification, and that is a pretty appealing piece of pie to lay claim to. Issue being that you will have to get through the victor of that matchup you mentioned happening tomorrow, and that does mean that it's not a free run by any means, but definitely a win you will be looking to take away here to secure better standing when it comes to actually making a case for one of those hotly contested world seeds.
Exactly, having to stick around at the upper bracket to give you the advantage, of course, as okay.
Yep. I said Nautilus Kalista need to get in lane early, try and cheese some prio in there and kind of punish the Ezreal Braum. Yeah, that is not how you do it. Hooking a minion, not necessarily the best start. You're seeing already, though, Mission actually edging out a small lead mid because the range advantage of the Akali, thanks to 5-point strike Q, does mean Kiana, if she wants to move into trade, is going to get harassed just that little bit more reliably. Bot lane should go in favor of Machi pretty handily, unless Lil V masterfully juggles these stacks, but I think the Ezreal is less of a comfort pick for Lil V, so much as it's just a takeaway from Bruce.
And it's starting to look quite similar to what happened rather in game number 1 and 2, actually, where Nesty, normally having a difficult time against Mission in his particular matchup, but the biggest question is whether or not he's still able to create impact, despite having Mission full priority right off the bat in the game.
Yeah, looking at Mission on this Akali, by the way, it takes time to come online, but it's still very threatening come the later stages. Granted, She's not quite the monster she used to be, but she did get a little bit of a buff this patch across a couple of spells. Notably, the standardization of damage on her kit means there's no random physical damage that she's not getting effective spell pen from with a later purchase of a Void Staff or a Morello, and it does mean we now have a legitimate damage threat in the mid lane should this game go on for quite some time, to a point where Bruce is actually going to fall off on this Callista.
Just as you mentioned, yes, able to rely on mission, and again, that's the mission style of things. Having to scale up later onto the game as Nesty is able to at least achieve a little bit of solid ground, and Lilvi and Woody still a little bit safe as Machi still looking for the prime opportunity, considering the fact that they saw the two junglers having to mingle a little bit in the mid lane, or in the river rather.
Yeah, actually very, very solid secure from the side of J-Team there. Not quite the crazy invade/clear Lilia we saw previously, but a double crab is a fantastic start for any champ, and with red buff still standing, it means Hana gets the full efficient clear, and a ton of gold already funneled into this champ. We mentioned she snowballs dramatically well, and does need to do well early to get on the board. This is about as good a start as you can possibly hope for, and it does mean the J-Team jungler is in prime position when it comes to actually influencing these lanes.
Exactly, great start for Hana as Gemini still doing Gemini things on the grave, still second time around for this champion in particular, as that is his second in a row since game number 2. There is the hook from Koala in, but Woody is just going to be there to soak in all of the damage. Seed will not hit anyone, but that's going to be a trade of HP for both of the bot lane.
End of the day, any trade that Braum Ezreal walk away intact from is a good one at this point of the game, and again, we want to highlight the mid matchup. Granted, Akali, again, as we mentioned, kind of AFK early in the lane phase, but as long as you're applying enough pressure to stop Qiyana from having free dominion over the map, it's a small win. Do we see Nesty just opt for the Moby Boots rush like we've seen in the past from Qiyana, or do we see a more traditional kind of lethality build into actually skirmishing actively against mission?
Yeah, true. Whether or not Nesty wants to wait it out in Dragon fights, or maybe in Rift Herald fights, or create impact a little bit more on towards the side lanes, which is definitely more into his element. As we can see, it's a repeat of what we've seen earlier, where Type A J-Team is fine to sort of give up presence when it comes to the first break of the game, at least, and just allow that to happen and exchange that for Rift Herald at the top side of the map instead.
Yeah, Seeker's Arm Guard, very valuable against this squad from J-Team, but they actually do have a fair amount of magic damage between Lilia and Ezreal. That being said though, mission itemizing for lane, classic, just shut down lethality effectiveness just that little bit more, and now here's what we wanted to see. 3-man dive top from J-Team. It's not quite 3-man because Lilia's in Narnia, but it's a good 2-man onto PK. You need to stun the secondary activation, and they do!
They do get that first blood and get out. Even Mission having to teleport in is going to be too late, and J-Team just swoops the kill in and swoops out, and that's mission accomplished.
Yep, good pickup onto PK there, and it does mean that you now have gold funneled onto Lilia through mid lane clear as well. Solid. As long as you're CCing the Ornn before he can knock back the Call of the Forge God, it's a pretty free kill. And now Rest, off to a fantastic start yet again, can look to snowball this game, put J-Team on the board, and get them into that commanding position we saw in game number 2.
Yeah, if they're able to replicate that top side dominance from Rest in the previous game, then they're off to a good start, actually. Mission still has a lot of mobility in store, is able to escape at least, as Hana just waddles through the mid lane, I suppose. But Rift Herald is about to spawn. Again, this is the typical game for Type A J-Team. Give up first dragon, but still, let's see whether or not they're able to contest that Rift Herald once it spawns.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit concerned that Mission did commit his TP trying to salvage a play that there was no real recourse to actually contesting. And it does slow the Akali's kind of climb out of this early game lull just that little bit more. The Seekers as well, while necessary, does mean you're not getting your Gunblade for quite some time, and that early kill pressure just gonna be delayed to like 15, 16, 17 minutes for mission. Looking for side lane play to come out from the Akali before she gets 4 or 5 items and starts to actually contribute meaningfully towards these team fights and skirmishes.
Which is very true to the mission name of having to just survive the laning phase and air quote chill and see whether or not they can punish certain aggressive plays across the map. And he did try, I mean, teleported at topside, but the kill was just too fast for any sort of counterattack. True shot barrage. Just for that. And so far though, J-Team bot lane still pretty safe.
Riku, I miss Alpha. They are the opposite of air quote chill. They just go in, have a good time, and that is what I want to see this game. 9 minutes in, 1 kill on the board. We know we said that these were the slower kind of paced teams when it comes to the region. Even if they are at top of the table, they do take some time to come online through mid to late game team fights, but still, use the power that your lanes are affording you and use the aggressive play. Hana again, just, it's not even a gank, it's just mid lane wave pickup for the second time this game.
Exactly, and it's a little bit scary to consider the fact that this was the same approach that J-Team did in game number 1. Not a lot of map presence, not a lot of aggression. Johanna might get sandwiched between 2 members of Machi there. The Ornhorn, the knockup's not going to be there as a flash. For Hana will be used for safety, but it's a flash trade for the Ornhorn. Therefore, I think that's pretty decent as Hana will be a little bit more vulnerable next time.
That was actually sick though. Hana timed his sleep insanely well to stop the Ornn from reactivating ult again. 0 for 2 on that headbutt back from PK so far this game. And because that key teamfight ult is down, it opens up an avenue for either a bot lane play without fear of a TP from the Ornn, or a Rift Herald contest without fear of a headbutt on that Call of the Forge God into backline access.
That seems to be the case, as they've managed to bait it out at least, and for Hana, will definitely get his ult quicker. Well, look at that! J-Team full commit on this one, as the ult will unfortunately not connect, but Koala restarts the fight with a Q. Gemini hugging the wall, seeing whether or not J-Team will fall for it. And the call is that's going to be a no, as that's just a flash for Woody and a flash for Bruce in exchange of that encounter.
So Ezreal Braum actually should win out at this stage of the lane against the Kalista Nautilus. Yes, Kalista's fantastic into most AD carries early, but at the same time, Braum is really, really oppressive into melee support. You saw him flash, very limited counterplay in that regard, but good disengage to come through from Machi there. And now they can look for an engage of their own with Fate's Call, with Depth Charge, and with their sights set on Lil V.
Exactly. Even though Bruce has lost his flash, still, though, as J-Team already makes their way to this Rift Herald. And I suppose Machi can just exchange. Either maybe just pursue the dragon and the next dragon to spawn, but based on what Machi is doing in the map at the moment, having to look for a prime position as we see Rest making a teleport. Hana might get sandwiched into 3 members, but Machi says thank you very much for the leash as they continue damaging the Rift Herald.
Remember how I got incredibly pissed off at the fact that we had drafted for early game in certain lanes for teams that aren't necessarily early game in their proactivity? Again, I'm having a large amount of frustration dictated towards Nesty's option of the Moby boots here. Because yes, while he did do one good roam earlier, it puts 1,200 gold, oh no, actually only 900 gold, but still, a sizable amount of gold invested into him actually being proactive early yet again. And that is not a position J-Team have found themselves flourishing in, and it's one that they've kind of forced themselves into now with this choice, because it means to get actual value out of this purchase, you have to move out of mid, you have to play Nesty's roaming playstyle, but it's not something they're actually having the option of doing right now, given the state of the other lanes. That being said, they could do it right now.
Yeah, they could do it right now, as that's the go signal for Woody and as well as Lil V. Let's see if the seed connects. Nice sidestep by Bruce. It looks like, free reign from Mission again in the mid lane with this roam with no exchange whatsoever. Let's see whether or not Hana and Nesty is able to connect this into a gank. As a seed will just roll in. But Mission is so far away for anything to connect, even though a sleep is triggered.
Look at that value. You give Akali 45 seconds of free farming mid every time you walk to a side lane and do nothing with it. Don't get the flash from Machi, don't even get the Fate's Call. J-Team, they've kind of pushed themselves into a position where they have to be proactive early, and as a result of that, Machi can just chill back, neutralize every kind of play, and again, it's a very reactionary kind of playstyle from both of these teams, and it is Machi who are able to take advantage of that so far this game.
Yeah, reactionary. Definitely a little bit Machi's in for early to mid, but now Machi first dibs on this dragon. True Shot Barrage unleashed, Gemini pretty low. Still secures that dragon, and at this point, you can see Nesty, first one to fall. The next one would be Lil B. Parents are gone. Rest will be just demolished by the members of Machi, with Hana just waddling his way into safety, but watching his members fall one by one.
Absolute flub on the entry point for the Kiana there. Tries to get a flank. Ults absolutely nothing. Supreme display of awful. And just what? How? They want the wombo combo fight. They want to layer their CC. They want to do something, and instead they just do nothing. Stagger the engage, fumble on the actual spells connecting, and just pour in one by one as Machi claim the Drake, claim the near clean ace. Machi more than happy with the way that one panned out. As Mission, we criticized him for delaying his gunblade, has it now because J-Team just funneled gold into him, whether that was from affording the Akali time to free farm while they tried to force roams that weren't materializing, or whether it was from the fact that Mission got 2 free kills and an assist out of that really poor execution from J-Team around that Drake. This is our first seed. I expected more, you expected more, we expected more, as Machi do handily handle J-Team throughout this early game.
Exactly, and again, J-Team, they came off from a tough season back in spring. Having to land in 7th place, even though there were high expectations, considering the fact that J-Team came off from a championship title in the LMS before coming into the PCS, and that's the reason why, a lot of people had high expectations, and now this could be a potential dive. That's 4 members at bot side, and now 3 joins in as Hana shows his presence here at the bottom side of the map. Nesty as well walking his way towards that, actually managed to be enough to stop Machi's dive.
Mission, despite not having tier 2 boots even relative to the Moby boots, will always have first roam because the Kiana at this point can't contest his wave clear in the mid lane. She can't duel the Akali, she'll just get smashed. And it's a really rough scenario to be in for Nesty, who of course, as we mentioned, needs to opt into these crazy roams. I loved the dive top, but we haven't seen anything promising from J-Team since then. Could see something here though.
Okay, Sleep connects though, but Gemini's presence is enough for J-Team to decide, okay, 2v2, never mind, let's just back away. Good engage still from J-Team, but unfortunately, it did not amount into anything. But yeah, 2 minutes on the clock though for the next dragon to spawn. Machi, if they do take that, they will be 5 minutes away for that soul point, and now Machi showing their dominance here in the jungle at least against J-Team.
I'm still so frustrated though, because Akali as a champion is good if your mid laner is on paper head and shoulders above the enemy mid in terms of raw skill, which has shown throughout the regular split to not be the case. She's also good if the enemy team just continue to make mistakes, because she will punish them by getting randomly fed and just taking over the game. And that seems to be the case here. J-Team validate a crazy pick from Machi by just being worse players in this game.
It is absolutely sad to see, considering, again, just as you mentioned, you got first seed J-Team, again, making their return to the top of the standings from their unfortunate spring run. But for Machi, yes, they'll be very happy to see that they're in control of the game at the moment, even though Rest is able to get that first kill. J-Team is unable to replicate, topside control, what we've seen from game number 2. 55 seconds on the clock for Machi to get more control again and get this dragon.
That being said, it's not all doom and gloom for J-Team. They have a fairly formidable Renekton. They have a wombo combo. Mission may look for a bit of a play here.
It's gonna dash away to safety as we can see Lil V still landing in the pokes. But with the members still converging at the bot side of the map, no assassination to be found on towards Lil V.
Yeah, Akali holding pretty okay in that side lane, of course. Would have done a better job of farming it out had she not hard commit 1v3 to try and kill the Ezreal or whatever the hell that was. Regardless, Machi, very, very promising rotation towards the mid lane, picks up that tier 1 tower for first blood, unlocks the map, forces J-Team to face check into them, into a Kalista engage, into a Nautilus re-engage, into all of that good stuff that is now coming up Machi, and Machi, they see the pressure J-Team are under, they answer accordingly with some 1-2 punches back of their own, and they look to be in full control as we crash into a mid game where this third Drake has just spawned.
Exactly, but J-Team, having to go first dibs on toward hitting this dragon at least. Rift Herald though is gonna have free reign on getting that second charge in. Oh no, they find Mission in the middle of it all in the side, but Mission's still safe at the moment, and that's gonna be the counterattack coming from Machi. Rest still low. Nasty will be the first one to fall into this fight, and as we can see, there's the Drowsy kicking in. That's a 2-man sweep at least, as Koala is gonna be in the middle. Bruce with the auto attacks, the double kill kicks in for this Kalista, and oh no, 2 members only left for J-Team, as Machi not only getting more kills in their pockets, but also more dragons in towards them into Soul Point as well after this.
Absolutely gorgeous execution from Machi there. Yes, Mission looked suspect. Yes, it was a cool initiation from J-Team, but they don't have enough going for them right now to actively commit for that. No 2 items on the Ez, no 3 items on the Ez, not even a second item for the Kiana. It's not good for them, even with the best start to the fight possible. Rest's Akali senses were tingling, immediately makes a beeline to catch out Mission, but they can't finish off the kill. They commit so much for it that by the time Mission re-enters this, it's just easy money for the mid laner of Machi. Bruce as well doing a lot of work on the Kalista, fantastic. Really promising for Machi in future fights as well, as long as they continue to punish J-Team like this.
Oh no, looks like that's Nesty Woody down for the count, and that's a double kill. More kills onto the Akali. 5-0-2, this is not looking pretty for J-Team.
Double marksman composition between Graves and Kalista as well does mean this Baron is butter. Should be cut down accordingly, should be mowed down, and with no flash on Hana, the Lilia has no way into the pit. Guaranteed as well between the fact that Rend plus the smite of the enemy jungler really gonna make any kind of contest a nightmare. J-Team wisely seed this, but have they given too much? Is this the game? 3 minutes on that soul, Baron in pocket for the next 3 minutes, gonna mean the map is in control. Hook was the facilitator, and Machi just putting on a clinic in Game 3 of this series.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of vision to work with on the river side of things for J-Team to spot that out, but a little bit extended for Nesty. But with that, because of that, Machi is able to take advantage, get 2 members, get that Baron, and get full control. I mean, they were already on the driver's seat. Now, I don't know, they have 2 cars.
Yeah. Yes, 2 cars.
Okay.
I feel like I had to acknowledge that. But anyway. Yeah, I feel like J-Team, they made that proactive top lane play early to split the map and then just kill the Ornn. And I thought that was beautiful. That was what they needed to do. And I feel like they recognized that and then said, alright, we've done our job for the early game. Good job, guys. Let's just chill. Peace out for the next 10 minutes. And they peaced out for way too long, enough for Machi to scale back and punish this.
Oh no, Nessie might be the first one to peace out, as look at that knock-up city, as Rest will be the next one to fall. Look at that, that's going to be a sleep on towards Koala, as PK will be doing the meat shielding. And with that, Machi doesn't lose any member whatsoever.
Yeah, Machi just rolling with the punches at this point. That was a fight that J-Team opted into. It looked promising because Nesty hit a 3-man stun, but the Kiana doesn't do enough damage by herself right now, and with Renekton the only other member to back her up, it meant there was no damage, there was no threat. J-Team, if they're gonna win this one out, need to get 3-4 items for the Ezreal, but by the time Ezreal crashes into that mid-game, it will mean that Akali can just steamroll him. She is so fed, Mission is so big, and Machi now looking to take this series to match point.
Whew. Felt a little bad for Rest there. Got the not ult, got the Fate's Call, got the Ornhorn. That's a lot of knockups to deal with. And, you know, J-Team struggling a lot here as Machi, just as you mentioned, Mission fully fed 502. Upgraded Zhonya's over there. And no one can deal with him at the moment because every time Machi pulls the go button, there's no escape for Nesty when he's target locked.
Yeah, really frustrating to see because it looked like this game was off to such a good start. It looked like they finally shook the Nesty is anchored to this mid lane kind of mentality we saw through their champion select earlier in these 2 games that we saw previously. And yet, after that successful first blood kill, nothing happened. Nothing materialized in favor of J-Team. Except
maybe this is the one. Yes, Mission is going to be on stasis with the rest of the members of Machi joins in. Mission saves himself, gets a kill, and leaves it at that as Machi may not be healthy, but they're able to make this work. J-Team overcommits, and Machi lives. Mission lives.
Machi get a ton of gold funneled back into them. Credit to J-Team for actually trying to find that kill. Yes, it did blow up in their faces, but at least they are being proactive again. And yet, Machi play that about as well as they could. Hourglass, which is upgraded by the Ornn for whatever reason. I don't know how to feel about that one. Probably would have gone for the Might of the Ruined King or the Black Cleaver myself, but sure, whatever, fine. We roll with it. Dragon Soul now in pocket for Machi, ready and willing to take this one down.
Yeah, looks very convincing from start to finish, and it all started, this fight all started with Mission having to take the dangerous path going back to the lane, and this, look at that, Mission incredibly low, having the stasis in, dashes out, gets a heal, and boom, and unfortunately, Nesty's dead again.
It is kind of doomed, Riku.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but at the same time, Ezreal does things. Both solo laners needed to get ahead early. Lilia, very underwhelming when she doesn't snowball. And Ezreal, by the time he reaches 3 items at this rate, will just be in range to get one shot by Akali. Also delaying his 3rd item to get some lethality going, because Duskblade is very high value when behind. Not. Building more lethality at this point is just further making the armor purchases on practically everyone on this Machi lineup even more valuable. It's just kind of troll.
Yeah, it looks like putting them a little bit more behind. Bruce, though, taking a lot of tower hits. I was worried for Bruce. That True Shot Barrage, that was dangerous for Bruce.
Yeah, 6 health on that.
A little risky, but they're safe. They got a reset for this next Baron to spawn. J-Team at least has a little bit of vision, but big problem is they're very far behind to try and fight towards this territory. So we'll have to see if they're able to get a pick, and I guess that's a good situation for J-Team to celebrate.
At the same time, J-Team's comp is on a timer, J-Team's itemization is on a timer, and J-Team now are literally on a timer with Baron up fairly shortly and Elder spawning in 4 minutes. The pressure is on J-Team to actually make the magic happen, to make a big play, and yet what kind of play can you hope for? A 5-person Kiana Lilia combo, and even then, they maybe have the damage to take down 1 person, but if Mission or Bruce live, your team is dead. You are shredded. You are gone. You are out of there.
Absolutely, yes. J-Team, a lot of the squishy members are around for Mission to bite into, I suppose, as this is going to be the mini poke game while Machi likes to clean up vision before pursuing 100% on the Baron. Managed to get the seed in on towards Koala though, but looks like the hook will not connect as well. This is very scary for J-Team. It looks like that's going to be a dive towards Rest. He is now full commission on towards this retreat as the rest of the members of J-Team like to do a counterattack. Woody also ready down for the count. Nice reset on Koala. Nice double stun on the Kiana ult. Koala so low. There's the tick, but unfortunately it's not enough to eliminate him. And look at that. J-Team, a lot of healthy targets. Mission dives in. Look at that. Hana, very incredibly low. Has to retreat. Has to go back to safety. But it's enough for them to stop that Baron commit.
Credit to J-Team for playing that fight out about as well as they could have, but unfortunately, the re-engage is gonna come through. Machi, they are looking for this. J-Team need to try and do something, but Hana, your health!
That's incredibly dangerous. Exactly. I mean, Hana doesn't have flash anymore, and Koala might actually solo kill the jungler. He actually does it. Koala does it. Flash Q in, no jungler anymore, no potential steal or a smite, but oh no, Nesty! He just didn't do the flash over the wall, and I'm running out of breath as Machi is just gonna do cleanup. Woody having no mana, being the last one to get to that retreat. Look at the burst coming from Mission. Lascone separates, isolates, Nesty all alone, and I guess Rest will be the only one left to survive as he teleports back to base.
Yeah, the turret almost taking Rest down there. One more shot would have sealed his fate as he teleported out from under it. And yet J-Team, their top laner, is the only one that walks away. Machi, the fight was messy. Machi, the Baron took a second commitment. But Machi can look to close now. Yes, it took them a second Baron to really get the confidence behind actually committing for the siege. But they have it now, and they have a good enough position that they can look to end this one out. Look at this. Mission just floating off towards the side, trying to find a flank, trying to find an angle in, as Nesty largely does the same. Live and die by how successful your mid laners' avenues into this fight are.
Exactly, and I mean, you know, Nesty is able to get a double man stun, but unable to finish off Koala right off the bat, and oh dear me, looks like Hana has fallen. That's 40 seconds on the clock for a 4v5 situation in favor of Machi.
Yeah, this is sad, you could say. Big commitment with a big push, with a big wave, with the Baron buff, and the fight!
There we go. Oranhorn gets that one knock up on towards Woody. Rest wants to escape, but it's not enough. Bruce with immense amount of damage on the Kalista. Another knock-up happens. Woody will be the next one to fall. 3 members down for J-Team. This is Machi hammering down with her lead and not allowing J-Team to recover as they now remove the Nexus Tower. And now they will remove the second one in, making this game, taking it to a 1-2 situation for this best-of-5 series.
19-2 on that scoreboard towards the end there. Complete decimation after a fairly quiet first 10 minutes. Machi just explode that game with the Akali once she comes online, and J-Team funnel kills into Mission, running in there like headless chickens, just being picked off one by one by one by one. 19 times.
19 times, exactly. Yeah, I think it started off really decently, I suppose, after Nesty making a good roam at topside, but after that, we didn't really see anything more.
Yeah, it looked good. It looked promising. They split the map accordingly, roamed when they had to, played the mechanics of that individual dive almost flawlessly, forced the Akali's TP seemingly at random after that. J-Team, they had the setup, and yet they itemized to a point where they had to continue to be aggressive early, which let Machi take the reactive plays accordingly and just outplay time and time again.
Yeah, I mean, you could feel, like, speaking of outplay, you could feel that J-Team really wanted to eliminate Mission, like isolate Mission, but every single time Mission is able to come out safe.
And Akali sucks when she has to engage and be proactive and force fights. She's so good at fighting front to back, unlike most other assassins. She flourishes when you let her play in the shroud, play with the QCD, just do her own thing, and choose and pick an avenue with which to go in. And that's how Mission succeeded here. Just always went for the good lined up fight that the rest of the team set him up for.
Exactly, and it's a breath of fresh air. Again, we've never seen Mission on the Akali pick, maybe even during playoffs of spring, not even during summer. So definitely a breath of fresh air. But, you know, it's interesting because Nesty was usually supposed to be the role of neutralizing Mission, but we've never really seen him do that just yet.
In fact, it's been completely the opposite. Mission holding Nesty in the mid lane pretty consistently, bar that first initial fumble. And yeah, Machi just superior team fighting time and time again. Certainly not what we were expecting after game 2.
Exactly, because Machi is now having a fun time when it comes to the early phases of the game up to the last, as they've been punishing J-Team time and time again. I mean, look at the damage coming from at least Lil V, but it's sad to look at Kiana and Lilia at this point of the game.
Yeah, Kiana invisible, Renekton less than invisible. Just not a lot coming through from the solo laners of J-Team, who started off the game with first blood, who started off with pushing lane states, who started off with big leads for themselves individually, but instead of growing them, just throw them out the window.
And I think the biggest question is whether or not we're going to be seeing game number 2 J-Team or game number 3 J-Team, because Machi has been, you know, playing their way and able to adjust whenever J-Team decides to play all of these, you know, early aggressive drafts. But I mean, it's looking pretty dire at the moment because game number 3 looked pretty solid for Machi.
Yeah, J-Team now not only feeling the pressure in draft, in itemization, in game, but now feeling the pressure out of game 2, because you lose here, knocked down into the losers bracket, and while it's not the end of the world and could just give you a longer postseason to actually ramp up come Worlds, it's meaning that you won't be one best of 5 away from Worlds. And this is a Machi I wasn't expecting to even make a deep playoffs run at all, so pleasantly surprised to see them starting to show up again. But on the other hand, very concerning for J-Team and very concerning for the implications of the region come international gameplay.
Yep, exactly. I mean, first seed, but you know what? Mission is able to garner himself that MVP title as Akali, super fed, always gets away with things.
Yep, flourishing completely on that mid lane assassin. Skirted around the fights pretty accurately. Yes, he didn't hold down his lane opponent all too well, but it's hard during the weird reset timing that should come through for that Kiana roam. And then after that, just took firm control of the game. Cleaned up fights, initiated fights, found picks, split pushed, all of that good stuff was where he needed to be, when he needed to be. And Mission, now with 2 MVPs to his name in a 3-game series, looks to be man of the match as we do crash into a game 4.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes me wonder whether or not we're going into that game number 5, which, you know, Machi isn't a stranger to. Meanwhile, J-Team hasn't really touched into that game 5 element just yet. Again, as they stayed constantly into the lower bracket back at spring playoffs. And yeah, pressure is definitely building as, you know, Machi is already towards that match point. Kind of curious to see what adjustments has to be made because Mission has his secret Akali weapon. We'll find out here at the next game for game number 4. Stick around.
CTBC Bank is Taiwan's top financial institution, but we're not stopping there. We're crafting an international brand and already have over 260 outlets in 14 countries. We are by your side, ready to embrace the future.